Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, Link to the Past Part 2 and Link to the Past Part 2 Part 2. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. Mark, how's it going?
Feeling great.
Yeah, feeling great. I feel, I'm starting to feel a little tired. I traveled this weekend, as I mentioned on Tuesday, and I can hear it in my voice. I feel like my voice is deeper, and I think this will be a relic of this. When I listen back to this on Thursday, I'll be like, wow, my voice sounded different 4 days ago.
Right, because normally you sound like a mouse.
I normally sound like Mickey Mouse. I would attempt to make that,
but you can't.
I can't. This is what it sounds like.
It's not happening.
Gee, Minnie, am I doing it? Am I doing it? Does it sound like I'm doing it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
No, well, that's a problem. We are going to get into our conversation about Link's Awakening and A Link Between Worlds. But before we do that, we've got just a couple things that we need your help on. And this is, sad to say, the last time we're going to ask for your help on this specific topic. We need to know who the best Zelda NPC is.
And we need to know right quick.
We need to know right now. So if you don't get an email to us by Monday, and I don't care when you're listening to this, if it's past Monday, you've messed up.
You're too late.
You've messed up. We're going to be determining who the best NPC is in all the Zelda games. And without your help, Mark and I are going to make dumb choices. We are going to make bad choices. We're going to say that guy on the bridge.
Ugh.
And who even knows what that means?
No, but we would say it. That sounds like us.
Yeah. So, and then you have to live with that decision. Your actions and inactions have consequence. So you should email your favorites to Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And while you're doing that, maybe you want to try to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces?
Just do it.
Yeah. So just send your mailing address. My voice got a little squeaky there, right? Yeah. I didn't like it. Your mailing address to Nintendo Cartridge Society at
gmail.com. You can throw it all in the same email.
No, don't confuse me like that.
Do whatever you want.
2 separate emails. Mark here, doesn't touch the email.
I don't touch the emails.
Right.
Go for it.
Make them 2 separate
Chaos
emails.
theory.
Look,
I've been reading Jurassic Park.
No. You've been reading Jurassic Park? How's that going for you?
I've actually been reading The Lost World because I got that
really?
one before. Yeah, I put both on hold at the library, and people are like, I don't want to read The Lost World, so zipping through that real fast.
Yeah. The Lost World book is pretty good.
I like it a lot. I'm only like maybe a third of the way in.
I have not read Michael Crichton in 20 years. Does he hold up? Because he had some
depends on the book.
Sure, he had some late in life weird denials of climate change and some other stuff, right?
Right, and
he turned out to be a weirdo, which maybe we should have been able to see coming down the road.
A lot of his books are still fun.
Okay, great. And look, that's all we actually want from Jurassic Park anyway. Is it's got dinosaurs in it. Be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read Jurassic Park yet for a long time, so maybe that one's no good. But Lost World seems fine so far.
Excellent. Speaking of sequels, we are now going to begin our conversation about the 2 sequels to A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, and A Link Between Worlds. Let's get into it. Now, Link's Awakening, it may be the most they're both pretty obvious sequels to this game, right? Or to A Link to the Past. But Link's Awakening was the one that came immediately after it. And both of these games were, in some incarnation, pitched as just remakes of A Link to the Past on their particular platforms. But then Link's Awakening, went through a weird sort of metamorphosis and became something much stranger. So, Mark, you've been playing this game.
That's right. I've actually been playing the DX version of it. So the one that came out for Game Boy Color has some added content.
Yeah, and it's got an extra dungeon.
Has an extra dungeon. Has You can connect it to your Game Boy camera to
Perfect.
print.
Yeah, because you can like take pictures with people.
Yeah. So like, there's like
It's a Photoshop.
right. There's
Right.
like a Photoshop, and then at certain areas in the game, like you'll get a little cutscene where the photographer comes over and like takes a photo of you,
Yeah.
and then if you had connected your Game Boy camera printer to the game, you'd be able to like print out those pictures.
So sadly, this functionality is lost to the ages, right?
The printout functionality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a Game Boy camera or Game Boy camera printer?
No, I never had either one.
I had the camera, but never the printer. So like there were just a bunch of photos saved on this like weird green camera that would occasionally stick out of my Game Boy.
My friend had one, so I definitely like remember playing with the filters and stuff.
Man, that's so weird. What a strange little relic. Sorry.
Well, okay,
Go on.
so I've been playing it for a little while. People, if you have listened to our episodes within the past month, will have heard me mention playing it before. So I guess my overall impressions are that it has been a very long time since I've played it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a, I think, really beloved game.
Yeah.
And I am definitely feeling that, but it's all because of the stuff that happens around, for me anyways, around the dungeons, rather than
You're not
like
finding the dungeons themselves.
They're fine.
Yeah.
Like they're totally fine, but they just feel really perfunctory.
Yeah, and I think like they certainly are as far as like what's unique and like compelling about the game. The world of Link's Awakening is cool, right?
Yeah, so the world of Link's Awakening is cool. You get some like, and there are some like abilities in the game that, you know, are neat. You get the rock feather, so you can
Jump for the
so you
first time.
can jump for the first time. But then like the actual application of that is like not very fun. Like there's these like 2D side-scrolling like platforming-esque levels
That's
with
right.
Mario enemies, you know, like Goombas and
Right, and it's sort of a callback to like the original Legend of Zelda, which had, I mean, those 2D sections were nothing. Right? They were just you climbing down a ladder and then like climbing up another ladder.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of that stuff is just not super fun in like the actual game. But like you were saying, like where this game really excels is in the world of that you're in. I can't remember what it's called. Something Island.
Koholint Island.
Yeah. And because everybody's weird in it, like things are so weird and interesting, and like the dialogue is funny, and it's well known that the developers of Link's Awakening were kind of inspired by Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks was really popular at the time, and so
specifically Koizumi. Is that the producer Koizumi? I think it's Koizumi. Who like put like the super weird spin on everything and wrote all of the dialogue for everyone but the owl and the windfish itself. So like those two characters were allowed to be more like gravitas and whatever, and then everyone else in the game is a weirdo. And like wants weird things and talks strangely and have like little dialects and stuff. And if you look, there were only 3 Zelda games before this, right? But none of them, none of those games have odd characters in them, and that's become like a staple of the Zelda franchise since then. So like, if you don't like Tingle, I guess you can trace his origin sort of back to this game, which is where weirdos start to show up.
Yeah,
that Tingle's actually in this game,
but like you can pretty much ignore all of it if you want to.
All of like the characters and stuff.
Yeah, like all like the like weirdness of it, like the real unique stuff, you can kind of get away from if you don't want to interact with it. If you want to just run from dungeon to dungeon,
well,
you can do that pretty successfully.
Is that true though? Because you do have to do the fetch quest, right?
Yeah, you have to do the fetch quest, but like
where you bring one thing to one person, they give you something else.
Sure, and it's like more like a trade quest because it happens throughout the entire game. But like that's not the weird stuff in this game.
That's some of it. You're bringing dog food to an alligator who gives you bananas.
That makes sense.
What are you talking about?
Like, I'm talking about the stuff.
You give a bow to a chain chomp? Like,
and that's great. Like, that's fun. But that's not
yes.
the game gets deeply weird if you wanted to, in like fun ways. Like if you there's a store in the village,
Yes,
and
I love this.
and there's like at a point where you can you like buy a shovel for 200 rupees, and then after you buy the shovel, the bow appears, and the bow is like 600 rupees or something like that. Like, it's very expensive, but you are able to steal it.
All you have to do is pick it up and like walk behind the shop guy.
Yeah, it's like you stand like above the shop guy, and then at a diagonal, like quickly walk out of the shop before he notices, because he can notice you if you take too long,
Or
and he'll
if-
like stop you.
If you walk in front of him too, he'll notice that.
So you're able to steal it, and there's like a little dialogue that's like, well, you got, like, good going, you
Yeah,
took it. Anytime
Good
you go
for
back,
you got away with it.
So anytime you go back to the shop, he'll zap you with lightning bolt, and your name on the save file and in game gets changed to Thief.
Yeah, and everyone just calls you Thief forever, which is awesome.
It's just stuff like that where it's like, yeah, we let you steal this bow. Like that those are the only consequences, but like,
Right. You can do it.
yeah.
Well, and it's not just the bow. Like, you could do that for any item if you want to. You could steal anything in this game
when you
from this guy.
When you have like Marin with you,
Yeah.
and you're like walking around, if you hit one of the chickens, she's like, no, don't do it. But if you keep hitting the chickens, eventually she's just like, yes, hit the chicken. It's just like stuff like that where you're like, this is so weird.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't like know it necessarily. Yeah, you would see that there, like, the island is interesting and there are like these interesting characters, but like the deep weirdness of this game only comes if you're just like messing around in the overworld.
Yeah, I guess that's true, and something that I hadn't really considered, that while the game is weird on its face, it is much weirder if you dig into it. I guess we didn't say this since we started recording. We said it to each other before we started, but we are going full on spoilers here. So
yeah.
So if you're worried about having Link's Awakening spoiled for you, or Link Between Worlds, bail now. But both of these games have stories that like sort of venture off of the normal like Zelda model. Even if A Link Between Worlds in particular, it kind of does like a little bit of a retread, at least superficially, of the story of Link to the Past. But like this game, Link's Awakening, doesn't take place in Hyrule. There's no Zelda. There's no Triforce. And it has the weirdest thing in the world: a giant egg on the top of a mountain that houses a fish.
Right, and you're collecting, like, each dungeon has a musical instrument at the end, and you need all 8 so you can play the song and wake up the windfish.
The Ballad of the Windfish, yeah.
And they get away with it in Link's Awakening, like the weirdness in Link's Awakening, because it's all a dream.
Right.
And so that's they're out for
yeah.
why it's so weird. And it's honestly, it's a little disappointing when Ganon shows up at the end. I mean, I guess at that point they're only a few games in, and so...
Well, but Ganon shows up, but it's Dream Ganon.
Yeah.
It is a dream of the Windfish. So that's the thing that I really like about this game, and where like it gets so deeply weird and like sad at the same time, is that, it's not that everything that happened in it is a dream or Link's dream. It's that the whole island is the creation, the dream of this giant fish. Or it's like a whale. It looks like a whale. The windfish, right? And so like it is weird because it is a dream. Link somehow found his way into another creature's dream. That's so weird. I don't know. I think that game's really neat and really cool.
It is. It is. I enjoyed it. Again, like the actual like Zelda-y parts of it.
Yeah,
I
the
thought
dungeons and stuff.
Yeah, they're like fine. But I do think this is a game that. Remember a while back there were those rumors of a remake.
Yes.
And initially I was like, oh, come on. But now that I've like played Link's Awakening DX again, and I can't imagine the original Link's Awakening is any different, I'm like, oh yeah, this game would be perfect for a remake, as long as you were able to like keep the weirdness of the overworld and like the charm of the overworld intact. Then because like the rest of the stuff, like the dungeons or anything, they're not so sacred that you're like, ooh, can't touch this.
Yeah. Can't touch this. The remakes of like all the other remakes that we've seen in the last like decade or so, the 3DS ones and Wind Waker and Twilight Princess have all been pretty smart about trimming out the parts of those games that didn't work, or like the addressing the actual pain points. So it would be cool to see them like tackle Link's Awakening again, and maybe just be like, yeah, we didn't have a solid handle on dungeon design in this one.
Yeah, or now we have more face buttons, so you don't have to
Also
go to
that.
like the start menu every time you want to switch out an item real fast.
Right, because there are parts of that game where you have to do like a long jump, and you're like, okay, I need the Pegasus boots and the rock feather, and now I don't have a sword.
Yeah,
or a
that's
weapon.
all.
Of any
That's
kind.
it.
So yeah, it seems like there could be a lot of ways for them to smooth those edges. I would totally be on board for a Link's Awakening remake. How far did you get in the game this time? Or how far
I ended
are
up
you?
beating it
You ended up beating it.
because it's not that long.
Right. Yeah, it's not a super long
Especially like
dungeons.
towards the end. Again, when you're just like, all right, I'm just gonna like get to the dungeons as fast as possible. Then it's a pretty quick experience.
Isn't there also like a little raccoon early in the game that you had to like throw dust in his face so he can't confuse you?
Yeah, it turns out that he's actually like somebody who lives in the village.
Of course.
Yeah, sleep dust features prominently.
Well, I mean, if you make a dream character fall asleep, what happens to him?
I think it's like
I think you're murdering him. I think is what's happening.
Yeah, for sure.
So then we can skip maybe 20 years later, right? What's the time span between Link's Awakening and Link Between Worlds?
I guess I'm not even sure when Link's Awakening first came out.
Yeah, me neither. I want to say 94, but that even feels late to me.
Definitely after A Link to the Past.
That's true. But so and then 2013 is when Link Between Worlds came out. And I skipped it at the time. I don't know why. I was just like, I don't need it. I only heard and read good things about it, but I was like, I'll wait this one out. And then just to sort of, I don't know, like prod me into the direction of I should play this game, you were like, here, borrow my copy of this game.
Yeah, this was 5 years ago.
This is a long time ago. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, I will. Did not until maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. When I finally put the game into my 3DS. No big surprises here. It's a great game, and I love it. It obviously takes the exact world of Link to the Past and kind of represents it. But now instead of everything being, it still looks like it's a 2-dimensional, over the top view. But the depth, all of the surfaces have depth, so that when Link gets transformed into a painting and later transforms himself into a painting, he can move along those walls and on those surfaces.
Yeah, so everything's rendered in like 3D sprites or 3D.
Yeah, I mean it's in 3D. Yeah,
yeah, in 3D.
I mean, except for when you are on the wall, in which case Link becomes this little like mural sprite moving around. But so the story of the game is that you are made aware of a second world that is connected to Hyrule, much like the Dark World from the original Link to the Past. But this one they are calling Low Rule. So the opposite of Hyrule is Low Rule. And in Low Rule, they once had a Triforce, but they now no longer have this Triforce. And so you are sort of recruited by Princess Hilda, which sounds a lot like Zelda, but is different, to collect, to free the 7 sages and restore the Triforce for them. It was a little unclear to me what she wanted me to do, but turns out that's because she's a snake in the grass and is tricking you into working for her, so that she can steal your Triforce to restore Low Rule to its place of former glory. Which is awesome, right? It's a fun. Both of these games have story in a way that most Zelda games don't. Like they both have bits of intrigue. They both have like twists near the end where like the entire stakes are turned on their head, and you're like, what I thought I was doing, what I thought was a good thing is now like a bad thing. Like Metal Gear Solid. these games are like Metal Gear Solid, is what I'm saying. Um, and the characters in this, I feel like, are maybe not as unique as they are in Link's Awakening, but they are super strong in their own right. Um, each of the seven sages you meet in like the first like three dungeons of the game, which all take place in Hyrule before you even know about Low Rule. And so you meet them all then, and then when they pop up later in the game, you're like, oh, I know him, I know him, I know him. Kind of a callback to Ocarina of Time in that way. Um, but yeah, I really like this game. The dungeons, unlike Link's Awakening, are all like impeccably designed. They took this idea of moving along a wall as a two-dimensional object, and like how that fits into the various like puzzle solving mechanics that are in a normal 2D Zelda game, and just like blew it up. It's like the dungeons are all perfectly designed as far as I'm concerned.
It's also one of those things where like the 3D, if you played on a 2DS or with the 3D turned off, like I guess you don't really lose anything, but there are moments where the 3D is like, one, really cool looking,
Yeah.
and two, is like helpful in gauging your like distance, or like,
Oh yeah.
you know,
No,
like when you're like trying
sure.
to like jump and things like that.
Yeah, you're like, am I high enough? Because like one of the things, if you are on a high enough surface and you merge with the wall, then you can walk along that wall to get to another high surface. But you do have to see, you have to like gauge the depth to see if you're like at the right level. So there were, I played this game maybe like half in 3D, half not. But anytime I would like walk into a room and be like, wait a minute, how do I do this? I'd flip the 3D on, and it actually does help you like gauge how to do all of it.
Mechanically, this game is also kind of famous because it started breaking the Zelda mold up to this point, where you get an item, you use this item in the dungeon, and then like that item maybe helps you unlock the next dungeon where you get a new item,
Right.
so on and so forth.
Right. It's just item gating, basically. That like the way to get onto the next level is to find the new item.
And you have to do it in like a very specific order.
Yes.
A Link Between Worlds throws all of that out, and
Right.
it's just like, you can get any of these items at any time. You just have to have enough rupees for it.
To rent it or to buy it. And the risk with renting something is if you die, then you have to give it back to Ravio, the mysterious merchant who has appeared in your house. It's just set up shop. So I like this mechanic. I only ended up dying once right at the end of the game after I had purchased everything. And other than that, like I just didn't. I had like a plan that I was like, if I'm gonna get close to dying, I'm just gonna turn the game off. So I don't have to like give anything back.
So my memory is that rupees were not like super hard to come by. Like I don't remember having to scrounge. Like I just bought everything, not like at once. But
Yeah.
I mean, like when I
Yeah,
never ended up renting.
It's not tough to. Yeah, yeah, and like I said, the only time that I died and would have like actually lost anything, I had already purchased everything. So, yeah, it's maybe like a little bit of a false threat. I mean, it is a real threat that if you die and don't have like a ferry to bring you back or whatever, that you have to re-rent the stuff. But even that, I think is okay. And yeah, like you say, there are rupees everywhere, and like opportunities to get more rupees through like playing games or like dodging chickens or like doing little races or whatever. Like the game is full of little mini games to just make you richer. It's the game has a 4-digit like rupee counter, and you never have to like find the grown-up wallet or whatever. Like all the rest of the Zelda games make you like earn the right to carry more money. This one's just like, nah. You need to get as much money as you can. There is a great fairy in this game that you need to give over the course of time 3,000 rupees to get one empty bottle from. So like the game is dealing in huge quantities of rupees, which is fun. Like I think there's something exciting about them actually cracking that code and making rupees like valuable, or like that you would need to actually collect them in some way. I feel like most Zelda games are just like, yeah, whatever. I don't have to care or think about it. But here they're like functional.
I remember when the game was first revealed and the art style was just like reviled.
I find that weird. I think the art style's cute.
I don't I don't know that I'd go so far as to say I think it's cute.
Yeah.
It's still probably one of my least favorite looking Zelda games.
Uh-huh.
But I definitely think the reaction to it was overblown. Like I think it works and you quickly get lost in it.
Yeah. Well, and I think it recalls Link to the Past pretty faithfully, just doing it in 3D. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I liked it at the end of the game when like Link and Zelda are hanging out together. I was, like it got me. I thought I was like, oh, I like this. I think it's good. What else did I want to say about this game? I liked it so much. And I feel like a fool for dragging my heels on it for so long.
One thing that I think is very, I guess maybe not calculated, but you had Phantom Hourglass, which
Yes.
was well received, but quickly kind of had like a negative reputation. And then you had Spirit Tracks, which I think people were fine with.
Right. These are the two sequels to the Wind Waker,
right,
and
and like
which appeared on DS.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And like the most recent portable original Zelda games.
Yeah.
And then you had this game, which was very consciously like, look, everybody loves A Link to the Past. We're just all like, at the beginning of this game, we're just going to straight up do Link to the Past.
Right. Well, and I mean, it is interesting, right? Because those two games that you mentioned, those two games and Skyward Sword were both, those were all three games that came out, and then this one, which is both, like it sort of jettisons a lot of like the direction that Zelda is moving in, especially if we put Twilight Princess in that, of like a very sort of linear open experience. And then this just becomes, I mean, by the time you get to Low Rule, it is literally, here are 7 dungeons, any order you want, go nuts. Whereas like that's not what Skyward Sword is, that's not what Phantom Hourglass is, that's not what so like, well, it is embracing some parts of the series past in like a very strict, very literal way. It's also breaking free from it in a more like conceptual way.
Would you want to see another 3DS or Switch Zelda game in this style, or do you think now that Breath of the Wild has come out, that even this mechanic of letting you rent items and pretty much being able to go to any dungeon you want to go to still feels like a little archaic at this point?
I don't think it feels archaic. Excuse me. I don't think it feels archaic because, like, I did just play it for the first time, 2 weeks ago up till now. And it felt like fresh and exciting and fun. And, I mean, either I'm just a sucker for Zelda games, or like there is a undeniable like just quality to Zelda games that like, I sunk 20 hours into this game over the course of the last 2 weeks and loved it. But I don't necessarily know that I do. Like whatever they do with Zelda next, I want to see them like iterate on it in an interesting way. And if that starts, even if they start by saying like, okay, we're gonna make another Link Between Worlds, it's gonna end up being something different, right? I was reading up a little bit on the history of Link Between Worlds, and it was a couple things. One was a small team of guys working on Zelda games started to work on a game whose main concept was communication, and they like couldn't properly pitch it to the higher ups, so they scrapped it. And then Miyamoto was like, I want to remake Link to the Past. And that's what this game was going to be originally, was a remake of Link to the Past. And they were like, well, we're also kicking around this idea of like turning into a painting and doing something with that. And he's like, no, I want to remake Link to the Past. And so then they sort of like merge these ideas together. And then they're like, what if it is sort of a sequel and a remake at the same time? So like whatever idea they start with, or whatever they're charged with from the get-go, it's going to turn into something else, right? And an idea, a Zelda game that is about communication, I bet that turned into Triforce Heroes. The also on 3DS using the same art style, but is like a 3-player cooperative Zelda adventure. So like I don't know. I think it almost feels foolish to be like I want another of this or I don't want another of this when it's like, well, they're gonna have ideas and then something else is gonna come out of it. Like they can't even say what they want, right? um but yeah, I mean, what do you think? Do you think that you would want to see them like take another stab at it, or
I mean, I think we've talked about before, not like specifically this. Like, if we never see another game in that Link to the Past esque Hyrule universe,
Yeah.
whatever it is at this point,
high rule, low rule?
then yeah, I'm totally cool with that. I am hopeful that one day we will get a, I guess, portable Zelda. One of these like maybe smaller projects.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Instead of like now that like the Switch is the sort of the main deal, that are all Zelda games from here on out going to be the like fully 3D whatever,
Right,
or
and I
something a
hope
little
not.
more broken down?
I hope we still have an opportunity for more Hyrule Heroes and just like or Hyrule
Triforce
Heroes and like just like games like that where they are able to be like, well, what if we made a Zelda game about communication?
Right, which I mean, it is both about communication and fashion. We got to play this game sometime, Mark.
We really do. We've talked about it.
It's not great, but we got to find us some used copies and then a third person to play with us and really dig into that and maybe Metroid Prime Federation Force. I don't know.
We should do it.
We should do it. It'll be a fun time. All right. Well, so those are our experiences with the sequels to A Link to the Past. Would love to know what everyone else thinks of these games. And would you like to see another game along these lines? Right? That was the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have one more question for you that I just thought of.
Yes.
So we're talking about Zelda NPCs next week.
Oh, yes.
Anybody in A Link Between Worlds, you don't necessarily have to put their name up now, but anybody in Link Between Worlds you're going to be putting up there?
So I do think that A Link Between Worlds offers two strong contenders for Best Zelda NPC. And I will name names. And remember, full spoilers are in effect here. So Princess Hilda of Low Rule and Link's counterpart in Low Rule. So like Low Rule has its own Link, Ganon, and Zelda. They are called different things and they play different roles. But Ravio, the merchant that you meet at the very beginning of the game, is Low Rule's Link. And unlike Link, who is a very courageous character, Ravio is a cowardly character. And like wears this purple bunny rabbit hood. But even in his cowardly way, is able to sort of manipulate events to bring peace to both Hyrule and Low Rule, and like, is able to trick Princess Hilda into not like killing you at the end of the game when she's got you cornered, and then you go home and wish for Low Rule to have its own Triforce again on the real Triforce, and everything is solved. So Ravio is a rad character as far as I'm concerned. He gets to be like a goofy dude who ends up basically saving two kingdoms through his light treachery. And he's got all the items and stuff. I think he's a strong contender. Were there any either from Link's Awakening or from Link Between Worlds that you would think?
As much as I like the characters in Link's Awakening, I don't know that there's anybody that I would necessarily put up as the best ever.
Yeah, I do have an answer from Link's Awakening, but I'm going to hold it for next week.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So would love to know everyone else's experience with these games. If you would like to write into us, you can do that at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. All right, Mark, let's close this out. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. If you like the episode, please review and rate and share it. do all of that stuff. If you can share the episode on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you do social media stuff, that helps us tremendously. On Twitter, I am Patrick at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MK Mitchell. The show is at Nin Cart Society. If you want to be our friends on Switch, our friend codes are in the episode description here. If you like Mark and Mine's opinions, we write about comic books on retconpunch.com. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying, thanks for listening.
Campfire.